In just a moment, I'm going to show you what causes mommy issues in men, how it deteriorates a relationship, and what to do about it. Welcome back again, men. It's Garrett Prettyman here at Garrett Prettyman Coaching. It's pretty common that daddy issues emerge in conversations around relationships, but mommy issues are just as prevalent. The way that you were able to get love from your mom is going to be replicated with your wife. And it may not be conscious. If you had to act out to get your mother's attention, you're probably going to act out in your marriage to get her attention. If you had to be the perfect boy that cleaned his room and got all his chores done in order to get patted on the head by his mother, you're probably going to be that husband who's always trying to do everything perfect and then looking behind you for that pat on the head. Now, before I get into this, I want to make it very clear that pointing our finger at somebody and blaming them for how our life is a path to disempowerment. It's almost like getting a flat tire and then standing on the side of the highway, blaming the nail that you drove over. And yes, even though the nail caused it, the path forward does not involve the nail anymore. The path forward involves you getting clear on what to do about the flat tire. Maybe you need to get the spare out of the trunk and put it on. Maybe you need to get a hold of somebody who knows how to take the spare off and put it on. The point being, we're about to look at some causes, but quickly move on to what to do about it. I want you to think about what causes mommy issues in boys as two sides of a spectrum. On the one side, we could see the mom who waits on her son hand and foot. This is the mother that orbits her life around the child. If he has a little sniffle, she comes running. If he feels a little off today, she cancels plans with friends and just caters to him. Everything he thinks and feels is controlling what she's doing. And she places his needs high above her own. I call this the active pull because it's very involved, it's very connected, it's very enmeshed. And what this creates in the child is a sense of entitlement towards others. Every time he had a need, she would come running to fulfill that need. So as a young boy with a small developing brain, it learned that if I don't like peanut butter, then somebody will take it away. If I do want to watch a movie, then somebody will put one on. He thinks that the world orbits around him because that's all he's known. As that man becomes an adult and becomes married and in relationship with a woman, he will seek mommy tendencies from his partner because he needs his wife to mommy him by taking care of all his emotional needs, some of his physical needs. Basically, she needs to step in and replace the role that he experienced as a child with his mom. And you can already see why this is going to affect a relationship, his expectation being delusional to reality. Now let's look at the other side of the spectrum. This is the mom who just lets her son fend for himself, the polar opposite of the mom who orbits around him constantly and adjusts her life around him. So I call this the passive pull. She's not engaged. She's disconnected from him. What this creates in the child is a distrust towards others. As an adult, he too is going to have a mommy issue in the relationship, but he needs his wife to mommy him by tolerating his emotional walls towards her. So when we see the active pull played out in the adult relationship, it's like he's constantly seeking all these things from her and needing them, where the polar opposite, when the passive pull reaches adulthood in a boy, he's not needing of any emotional closeness. He keeps women distant. He doesn't let himself become opened up and vulnerable to them. He's learned to live in his own little world, and you're not going to be able to get inside of that as a female. There is a balance to the spectrum. So for a mother who wants to create a boy who is secure and confident, the balance would look like this. She supports his passions, right? She is there to encourage and believe in him. But when he trips up and falls, she lets the men encourage, mentor, or challenge him to get back on his feet. He doesn't develop a connection where his mom is what gets him back on his feet. So here we are seeing mommy issue causes played out in the active and passive pull. Now we're going to look at mommy issue results in the active and passive pull. So the active pull The boy does have an artificial sense of self going through life, and he chases feminine from a place of insecurity. And what I mean by artificial sense is he still thinks the world revolves around him, not just like emotionally, but like on a physical level, an intellectual level. Like he expects if he says jump, people should jump. That's what his mom always did. That's how he knows the world to work. And so he doesn't really know himself. He knows an avatar version of himself that his mom loved and praised and supported, but he doesn't really know who he is and how that's going to be accepted or rejected by the world. A classic example of a mommy issue played out in the active pole is Elvis Presley. Elvis's relationship with his mother was toxic. And as he tried to play that out with Priscilla, it didn't work. Their relationship did end in divorce. And you can see by Elvis's lyrics in his songs that he was a very lonely man. He had a lot of emotional pain, and that gaping hole of mom was in him. Moving to the other side of the spectrum, the passive pole plays out as a low sense of self and distrust towards feminine from insecurity. Because remember, this is the boy that was left to fend for himself. An example of a man who lived out the passive role of mommy issues is Hugh Hefner. The passive pole lived out does have that distrust towards feminine because it's never come through for you before. You don't believe that it's capable of support or unwavering belief and affection or love. You have not lived in a world where that was your reality. Now, what's interesting is feminine is drawn to these two extreme polar sides of the spectrum because for the Elvis man, he seems to be just overflowing with romance when actually it's coming from a place of need. And the Hugh Hefner seems to be overflowing from a place of security and not needing women, but honestly, it's a reaction against his own vulnerabilities and a wall that they think they need to get through, and there'll be something amazing on the inside of that wall. So what does the balance look like? The balance is self-security. And an example of self-security is the James Bond persona, the man who knows who he is and operates to his own standards and his own frame. What we notice about the James Bond energy is a man who is slow and deliberate, a man who's intentional, a man who stays within his frame because no matter what is offered, said, or comes about, he doesn't react to stuff. He chooses to respond. Even in the body language, where you can see this woman is moving and shifting, and she's got emotions and feelings and ideas, and all these things are swirling in here. He isn't matching her energy. He's staying in his own lane. Notice how when he engages with her, he makes eye contact. He keeps his presence towards her, and he isn't moved when she starts to increase the pressure on him. He knows himself. He doesn't look to her to define that. And that is a very attractive vibe to hold towards women. Now, the James Bond vibe is not being some kind of narcissist who is incapable of feeling anything. He has all kinds of emotions and feelings. He's very human. And women can detect that he has a heart. You can see when he loses somebody he loves, it hurts him greatly, and it is hard for him. That energy that builds between the feminine and the masculine like this is very natural. It's not something that you can force. It's not something you can do to create artificially. You just have to stay in your frame and let it happen naturally. Mommy issues, when they're resolved, what we're basically doing is rewriting core beliefs. The example I'm showing you here is the concept of other things outside us telling us our core beliefs. Maybe someone said we're smart. Maybe mom said you're good. Maybe mom said you're unattractive. Maybe mom said you're stupid. Maybe somebody said you did it right. Maybe somebody said you did it wrong. All these things are outside of you. To resolve mommy issues, we really need to stop looking outside ourselves for validation. See, this red circle is stopping all these opinions and views and sources, and absence or presence doesn't matter. We need an internal masculine frame that we come from, that's inside of us. And this is what I teach men. I teach you how to have a James Bond masculine frame. This is a box that we operate inside of. It's who we are, regardless of the kind of mom we had or how we were raised. Whether you had the mom that orbited around you or the one that abandoned you, doesn't matter now as an adult. You get to develop your values and boundaries. You get to know your intentions. You get to choose your mindsets and you get to decide your purpose and mission. This contains you. Nothing outside you can be shaken or rattled or changed because you come from this box, no matter what happens in your life. A masculine frame gives us the courage to be vulnerable without being needy or unattractive towards women. Brother, if you would like to learn the framework to masculine confidence so you can have the James Bond type of energy and interaction in your relationship, which is highly attractive and highly healthy, then reach out. I'd be glad to have a free consultation with you. This journey I take men on to rewrite your thinking paradigms and to give yourself a foundation to operate from is so effective. I know that it's effective because I use it in my own life. I've worked with hundreds of men worldwide to help them find their clarity so that no matter what happens in life, they can respond confidently. My masculine confidence framework is not something I can just take you through in an afternoon or in one conversation. It is a commitment to positive change that will give you lasting results for the next 20 to 30 years of your life. Let's not put off something that we should have done 10 years ago, guys. I look forward to you reaching out and having a conversation with you.